All right, so I'll call the meeting to order. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone on the meeting. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm that you can hear me and by verifying that you are present. And we'll start with the commissioners. Travis,
Present.
Jonathan,
Present.
Emily,
Present.
and is Patrick on? I can't see him. Patrick, yes, you are.
Yeah, present.
All right, we have a full house. Then we'll go to staff. Leah
I'm here.
and Jan.
Present.
And we'll go down the speakers. So if you happen to be here, please just unmute yourself and just indicate that you are present so we know that you can hear us. We'll start with 26 Fay Mountain Road, Norm Hill. Not here
I think
yet?
you're on the wrong lead sheet.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yep.
She's going
Okay.
back in time.
I am.
Please don't.
Sorry. Let me, I had this all sorted out, all up on my screen. That's September 5th. That's September 5th. So I got the agenda. I got the 9-5. Let us restart this. We don't have to redo the whole thing, but let me just go to. All right, here we go. So we went through commissioner staff. So does this sound a little bit better? Speakers, One Patriot Way.
Yep.
Present.
And that would be Sandy Fisher. All right, thank you. 8 Millennium Drive, Angela Gassick. Jay Carey. Brian Marchetti.
I don't see
All right.
any of them yet.
Okay. 88 Worcester Street, Matthew Byrne. Christopher Horan. On 59 Pleasant Street, Stephen O'Connell or Chad Boardman. They may not be here yet, so hopefully they'll join us shortly. Okay, the open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order, the most recently extended on March 29th, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. The meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you are using the dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comment to be spoken by participants. Participants must use their raise hand feature by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of the right of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you are using dial-in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called upon. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time, will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside this purview need to be addressed by appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board, and traffic concern must be addressed with the planning board. I'm going to start a competition to see who can read this intro in the fastest. And then we're going to delegate it to whoever can do it the quickest. So, all right. Having said all of that, at 7:09, do we have any action items that we could look at?
Absolutely. We can just go right down the list if you like.
Okay. Whoops.
You want me
All
to
right.
lead you through, or do you want to call them out?
Okay, I'm going action items. So the first one, no meeting minutes, I guess, from
Correct.
August 8th. No problem. COC for 4 White Flower Lane.
Yep, this one was for a pool. They're all set. They've met all their conditions and everything's stable. They have grass growing. So I recommend issuing the COC.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to issue the COC.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
And we have a motion and a second to issue the certificate of compliance for 4 White Flower Lane. I will do a roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes, which means this passes unanimously. We don't always get to say that. So, all right. Next up is COC for 41 and 43 Weston Street.
Yep, this one was for basically an agricultural expansion. So they needed to clear some woods to have fields. They are all done with that work and everything's stabilized. I recommend issuing the COC.
Thank you. I'll go around. If anyone has any comments or questions on this, just please feel free to speak up. Otherwise, do I have a motion?
We do have
Sandy,
a
I just
hand
wanted to
up.
ask,
Sure.
I was just going to ask quickly, Sandy, you said 41 and 43 Weston Street. My notes just had 41 Weston Street. I just didn't want it to be read in as both. If
Okay.
it's just one or vice versa. So Jan or Leah, is it just 41?
Yeah,
or
I think if I'm remembering correctly, the initial permit was both, and now 43 is a house, 41 is the agricultural. Either way, it's intended to be a complete COC, not a partial.
What I
to-
meant is we need to correct it to just say 41 Weston Street, or can we let it ride with 41 and 43 for the sake of meeting minutes?
Let me look at something in the background here. There is a hand up if you wanted to do that while I check something.
All right.
All right, Cindy, you can unmute yourself and speak.
They're talking about 41 and 42.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, this is Norman Hill.
Just say, they're talking about whether it's a complete package, 41 and 43.
So years ago, he submitted for both 41 and 43. 43 is the new house and 41 is the open acreage. And the house was given a certificate of compliance several years ago. So the only open item is the land next door. It's a large piece of land. Did you see the photographs that I submitted?
Yeah, Leah's looking at it. Yeah.
So the only thing he's built on the site is a driveway to get out back. There was a wetland crossing, and that got inspected years ago, and got a partial release on the wetland crossing. And then out back, he's built a greenhouse. He's using this for his farm. So I've taken pictures that shows that all the grass is growing, and he's got boulders along the edge of the buffer zone, and he's got a greenhouse out there, and everything else is just lawn or woods.
So Leah, I mean, the bottom line question is everything's done, and whether we should be
Right.
saying 41 or 41 and 43, if that was originally submitted, then it just closes out that whole thing. But it's
Correct.
still
So just say both to make sure
Okay.
it's covered. I was trying to look in the background as to how it was technically filled out, but it's fine. Just you can say both.
right. Yeah. No, but
What I
Jonathan's
didn't want
good
to
question.
happen- I didn't want it 43 to be an open one that we shouldn't close, and that's why I asked the question.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing is, it probably is already closed, but it should have been a partial and not. So let's just, yeah. So no, it's a good question. So do I have a motion for 41 and 43 Weston Street for the
Make a
certificate of
motion to
compliance?
issue the certificate of compliance for 41 and 43 Weston Street.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan, you're the big picture in front of me.
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes, it passes unanimous.
Thank you very much. Everybody stay well. Thank you.
All right, so we're at 7:15. So we will start our first hearing. I'm sorry, the Dropbox keep pop up things in front of text I'm trying to read. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the construction of a fence at 1 Patriot Way in Grafton. Is someone here to speak to that?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandy Fisher. My family and I are the new owners of 1 Patriot Way as of June 1st. And our request is to install a fence around most of our house, most immediately to contain our dog and our child, although the materials were selected with some potential future aspirations of a pool in the coming years. The fence layout that you see in front of you was made by taking the vendor's measurements, and we're working with Miller Fence Company, and overlaying it on the town GIS aerial view, using the available tools on that site for the measurements that you see in front of you, particularly for the distance from what appears to be wetlands at the bottom corner of our property. What's you can't really see necessarily from the photo is that the proposed fence would be on all existing mature lawn. The fence will either be raked or stair-stepped over the existing land contours. We're not looking to change anything, to add any fill or anything of that nature. And then the small white railing that you see there would be removed as part of this project.
All right. Thank you for that. I will quickly do a roll call. And if anyone has any questions on this, please let me know. Emily,
No questions. Sorry, I lost Zoom.
no problem. Patrick,
No questions.
Jonathan,
Just to be clear, the fence, I'm assuming, is the red line. And the blue is the property line, and the dark blue is what's to the wetlands. Is that defined by anything else, or just, I don't know if we'd have any other requirements for this, Leah, or if we can run with this. I'm
No.
assuming if it's in front of us, it's fine.
Yeah, everything you said is accurate. The wetland layer is really faintly in green that
I can
dark
kinda
blue
see it,
line is
yeah.
pointing to. This is totally fine for an RDA.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's 49 feet. I can't quite read it, but it's close
Looks
to
like
50 feet.
44 feet, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
No other
And then,
questions.
all right. Thank you. Travis,
No questions.
Leah, anything to add?
I was just gonna say, usually we don't see things this simple on a single family house lot, because if they can be at least 50 feet away, they meet an exemption from having to file at all. So that's just because they fell within the 50 that they're doing an RDA. But other than that, I recommend issuing a negative determination with a special condition that if there's any excess material, it shall not be disposed of within the buffer zone.
Okay. I will open it up to the public if anyone has questions or comments on 1 Patriot Way. Please raise your hand by using the icon at the bottom of the Zoom page. And I would just go back to the applicant. Do you have any questions? And are you familiar with the RDA process?
Yes, thank you. No questions at this time.
And you are familiar with the RDA?
Yes.
Okay, so when we say negative determination, you understand that. All right, your presentation gave me a hint that you probably are very familiar with the permitting process. So, all right, having said that, do I have a motion to issue I can get this right. Do we have a motion to issue a negative determination with special conditions that excess material shall not be disposed of within the 100-foot buffer zone?
I will move to issue negative determination with the condition that material won't be disposed within the 100-foot buffer zone for One Patriot Way.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and then, well, this is also, part of this is to close the hearing too. So having that, a motion and a pass, we'll do a roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion passes unanimously. So good luck with your fence.
Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. All right. 7:21. All right. Other action items.
Sure, we can keep going down the list.
Okay, so 25 Faulkner Road. Any
Yep.
recommendations on that?
So that's just more misplaced originals that didn't make their way to the registry, so we need to reissue an original order of conditions and also conditionally issue a new original certificate of compliance pending receipt of the recording info for the order.
Okay, and obviously everything's stable. And how old is this anyways?
Decently old.
Okay.
It was previously fully closed out. They just never brought anything to the registry.
Okay. Sounds good. If no one has any question, do I have a motion?
I'll move to reissue the order of conditions and certificate of compliance for 25 Faulkner Road.
All right. And the certificate of compliance is conditional that they actually record
Conditional
the
that
order
they
of
actually
conditions. Yeah,
record it.
you got
Okay.
it. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion passes unanimously. Okay. So next one is 9-2 Brigati Village.
Yes, so this was a subdivision that came before us. It's up towards the common. This is their first request for an extension for 3 years. They have ongoing litigation about the project, so they're just hoping to keep the permits open and valid while they wrap that up.
Okay. Nothing to do with Concom as far as the litigation goes?
Correct.
Okay. Don't need to know about it then. All right. Do I have a motion for the continuation for 19-2 Brigati Village?
I'll move to issue a 3-year extension for Brigati Village.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries. Okay. Usage authorization, Leah?
Yeah,
the-
so
yeah.
at Hassanamesset Woods, we've been talking about the folks that wanted to help improve a spot on the trail that really poorly drains. Jan and I walked the whole loop trail at Hassanamesset Woods with Art to get his take on not just that spot, but 2 others as well that have drainage issues there, and figure out what would be needed wetlands permitting wise for folks to go ahead and help us out with spots like that. So the one that they were originally interested in, as well as a second one that's come up in conversation, are going to need an RDA. Jan and I are going to work to put that together for a boardwalk and slight bridge to span a certain area. And we're gonna try to have that before you guys October 3rd. So the original conservation land usage authorization for that work would go to the October 3rd meeting as well. However, tonight we do have a second usage, sorry, it's hard to say, usage authorization form from those same folks who just want to be able to do general trail maintenance at Hassanamesset Woods for 2023 and 2024, mainly clearing brush. There's quite a few spots that we have some overgrowth going on, and they'd just like to be able to work on that as they can through the end of this year and next year. So I thought we could take a vote on that one tonight. And like I said, the ones pertaining to drainage will be on October 3 with an RDA as well.
And just a quick question from me is the type of tools you'll use to maintain the brush.
I was assuming hand tools, but you shouldn't assume, so I will double check on that. If it's something you're comfortable doing a conditional approval.
And hand tools, I think is, obviously fine. I mean, I was more worried about if they were going to bring in some sort of wheeled vehicle or something else. If they go to power tools, we would just want to make sure they, that they understand they have to be responsible and
Right.
operate them safety, but I don't have any issues. Does anyone else have questions? I'll quickly go around. Emily?
No questions, thank you.
Patrick?
So just be work within the existing trail areas.
Correct.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Jonathan?
So Sandy, you mentioned no wheeled vehicles. What about like lawn? I don't know if they would have a lawnmower, or sometimes you get those brush cutters. If they were trying to widen a trail in a certain area or something, would that be allowable even though it's a wheeled vehicle? Or are you thinking a bigger vehicle?
I was
than
kind
that?
of thinking a little bit bigger or something that, had tires that would be, potentially rut and so forth. And as far as, if you're using hand tools, you're gonna kind of clear brush, and then you're gonna basically, just put the brush so that it, on the ground and so forth. If you're using, kind of a brush hog and so forth, that's a little bit more aggressive. So I don't. That's a really good question, because that's, I mean, what is the line for us? You know,
So
on
just,
yeah.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but just knowing what we know about the trail loop, I don't think they'd be able to get anything wheeled to the areas that need it, because they would have to cross the wet areas first. And I also I don't think there are areas that need a brush hog kind of thing. It's more growth coming in from the sides. That, people just want to be able to have a pair of shears with them as they walk.
Yeah, they just, you don't want to get scraped up by going through random branches on the side of the trail.
Bigger
So
bushes or something? Yeah.
okay, I just a little clarification.
Yeah, and I can double
Just-
check on those things with them as well.
Because they make like sickle bar attachments for like a weed whacker that you could use to do the same thing. I just, again, you brought up power tools and wheeled vehicles, so I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm not worried about power tools. It's just more that they operate them correctly. It's just when they start getting into some sort of wheeled vehicles, then it's a little bit different level. That's all. And
Carrying up
even
the
that,
trail.
we would just have to have more information.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Travis,
No other
thank you. Any questions, Travis?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. So Leah, do we need a vote just to approve this authorization, and then we can make it with those minor conditions of no wheeled vehicles or something?
Correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve work, to grant the usage authorization within the Hassanamesset trail work with, did we specify conditions specifically?
I would recommend just no wheeled vehicles at this time.
With the condition that, no wheeled vehicles are used at this time.
Okay. Do I have a
Second.
second? All right, you got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Travis.
Yes.
And I am also a yes. That is motion is passed unanimously. And Lee, if you could say thank you to those citizens for, not only going through this process but also doing the work. So I would
Absolutely.
just pass along. Thank you very much. All right, 7:30. Okay. All right, seeing that is 7:30, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, an application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a another pop-up, a pre-engineered building and associate utilities at 8 Millennium Drive in Grafton. And who's here to speak to that?
Good evening, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering. I apologize that my window says Brian Marchetti. He works for us, and I stole the link so I could log in this evening, not realizing it would say his name. So again, Patrick McCarty, nice to be back in front of the commission again. It's been a few years since I last presented. With me this evening is Jeff and Angela Gassick, who are both 8 Millennium LLC owners and owners of Epic Polymer Solutions, the proposed tenant for the building. As the chair just read, we've submitted a notice of intent under the Grafton Wetlands Bylaw and Stormwater Bylaw for the parcel located at 8 Millennium Drive, which is the vacant undeveloped lot at the end of the cul-de-sac. That's Millennium Drive, which is off of Centennial. The site was before the commission and planning board back in 2017 when they were proposing to construct a cultivation facility here. That project was approved by both the commission and the planning board, although that marijuana company was sold and the purchaser no longer wished to construct the cultivation facility here, so they put the property on the market. And Jeff and Angela have it under agreement to hopefully build a new building that they will own for their business, Epic Polymer Solutions, and they'll be the primary tenant of about 2/3 of the space. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any of the data other than a PDF copy of the old plans, so we started fresh in May of this year. Three Oaks Environmental, which is Marianne DePinto, who's a wetland scientist, went out and delineated two series of bordering vegetated wetlands on the site. One being the A series, which is along the northern boundary of the site, and the B series on the southern boundary of the site, both of which are BVW to an intermittent stream. In June of this year, we had Topper Land Survey go out and do an updated existing conditions survey that included locating the wetland delineations, existing topography, utilities, and the like. In July this year, we prepared the site plans that are before you. And Ms. Cameron, if it's possible to give me screen sharing permission, I have some stuff that I'd like to share.
So we actually have it locked down so that you can't.
Oh, okay.
But Jan has your plan set if you just want to cue her what you
Oh,
want
okay.
on the screen.
Okay, I'll just keep going. So right now, the plan you have in front of you is the grading and drainage plan. So we did submit a full set of site plans to both the commission and the planning board. That's our typical plan set consisting of a cover sheet, existing conditions plan, the layout and materials plan that shows the layout of the building, access driveways, parking lots, sidewalks, and the like. The grading and drainage plan that's before you that shows the existing contours kind of in the lighter gray and the proposed contours in black, as well as the proposed drainage improvements. There's a catch basin in the front parking lot, catch basins along the access driveway, and in the corner of the parking lot that's kind of in the westerly side of the site up above the detention basin, and one again at the loading docks. Those all are piped together. They're deep sump hooded catch basins piped together to a water quality unit that then discharges to an at-grade infiltration basin. And you could see the TP symbols at the bottom of the basin, which are the 3 locations where we conducted test pits to make sure we're providing the offset to seasonal high groundwater at the bottom of that infiltration basin. The plans also depict the limit of clearing, which is kind of that clouded shape that's around the perimeter of the grading, the erosion control barrier that follows the limit of clearing, starting at the cul-de-sac at Millennium Drive. It runs parallel to the driveway, parallel to the side of the building, and then loops around the proposed infiltration basin. Utilities will all come in from Millennium Drive. There's water at the street that'll be run underground to a new hydrant, as well as into the building for our sprinkler and domestic service. Sewer is across the driveway of 9 Millennium Drive, so we'll flow gravity out of the building to an oil water separator first to pick up floor drains, then into a pump station, and a 2-inch force main across the front of the green space and across the driveway of 9 Millennium, and then underground electric and gas. We show on our plans the 25-foot limit of no disturbance, which is the bold line offset from the A-series wetland, and then the 100-foot buffer zone. So the work within buffer zone is limited to the access driveway and utilities, a small corner of the building that you can see kind of in that top right corner of the building, and then part of the infiltration basin. In all areas, we're respecting the 25-foot no disturb, and in most locations, we're exceeding it. We do have a little bit of a pinch point as our frontage is limited at Millennium Drive, so we didn't have much room to negotiate our driveway out without coming tight to that. But to minimize the impact, we are proposing a retaining wall that runs parallel to the driveway, so that we weren't off-grading further towards the wetland series. We did also submit concurrently to DEP. They've issued us a file number of 1641047, and no technical comments were received from DEP. As I mentioned, we filed concurrently with Planning Board and Conservation on August 2nd. We've since received a peer review letter from Graves Engineering, comments on the sewer relative from the DPW, just some detail notations. They wanted us to note that the force main has to be 5 feet deep. It has to be pressure tested for leaks, and they want to witness that testing. Fire comments were standard boilerplate comments that I imagine they issue to every project because they weren't specific to ours. And then the town planner issued a memo with her comments. And so on Friday, we issued a response to comments letter and a revised set of plans. And you have it appears you have the revised plan in front of you. Yes, you do, because we added a little hammerhead to the turnaround at the loading area at the back of the building, so better truck access there. Nothing changed in the buffer zone from the originally submitted plans. So without running through my items, so we did submit the full notice of intent package, which included the certificate of good standing, the standard form work from the town's bylaws, the Form 3 notification to abutters, and a copy of the plans and the stormwater management calculations. We are fully compliant with all the conditions of stormwater management. I went through the revised plans, and the only other thing I had was a rendering that we had colored for the planning board that just better shows what's proposed to be cleared and what remains as natural wooded area on the site. For this project, we are as well as being the civil engineer for the project, we will be the general contractor for the building. So our own site work crews would be doing all the site work associated with the project. And then we will be the construction manager / general contractors, for the building itself. So we will be involved in the process from this point until the point that we get to hand Jeff and Angela a set of keys and welcome them to Grafton. They're currently in Northborough. leasing some space, and they're excited to grow their business and expand into Grafton. So I guess with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission members might have.
All right, thank you. Lee, I want to just give a quick rundown of any comments that you have and the status of any peer review.
Sure. So you mentioned a letter and then the revised plans that came out on Friday. Did that go through the Graves engineering comments to planning as well?
Yeah, so Graves only had, I think 6 comments. One was to, if I just pull it up here.
Because there were 4 of them that kind of overlapped with conservation, and I did not know that they had been addressed. And then additionally, Graves is gonna look at it again for any conservation specific issues, and we haven't gotten that letter yet.
If you give me 1 sec, I'll go grab Graves' letter. Okay, so Graves' comments were, our existing conditions plan didn't note that it was vertical granite curb at the existing cul-de-sac of Millennium, but our plans call out for granite at our radius, so that was just kind of a housekeeping. Their second comment was to show the guardrail at Millennium and how our guardrail ties into their guardrail, which has been added. Next comment was they reviewed our hydrology calculations and found them to be in order. Next comment was they asked us to add the test pit locations to the plan, which we did. Fourth comment was compliance with the stormwater handbook and standards is reasonably provided that the soil testing occurred where we said it occurred. So again, we added those to the plan. They asked for the rainfall intensity that would require an inspection of the basin as part of the long-term O&M plan, not the inspections that would occur under the construction general permit. Just making sure we coordinated our doors as shown on the architectural plans with the site plan, add an elevation on the spillway of the infiltration basin. And then they understood that sewer district and water district would review the plans, and they didn't review for compliance with Grafton stormwater regulations or wetland regulations as they were administered by Concom. So those were the 9 comments from Graves, all of which have been addressed except for obviously the one related to this commission.
Okay, so we're just waiting on an additional letter from Graves checking for conservation specific comments, but that's great that the planning ones are all set. The other notes that I had were just if the commission wanted to urge for any decentralization of stormwater, and that we asked folks to do limit of disturbance instead of limit of clearing or limit of work, just for the sake of, we find that that's most clear. I mean, in this case, the construction's being done in-house by you guys, but we usually ask for that because when the plan set's handed over to a contractor, we found that that's the most clear way to say it.
Okay, so yeah, if you scroll up on the plan set, no, I have it on my screen. I'll tell you which page. Oh yeah, so I guess on that grading, sorry, Leah, on the grading and drainage plan that you just had, it shows both the limit of clearing and the proposed erosion control barrier following each other.
Right, we're just asking for a wording change is all, to limit of disturbance.
based on previous issues, with people saying the difference between, limit of disturbance means you can't go any further versus it's just something that we found to be a little bit clearer. So,
Okay.
so to kind of go back to both what's in the stormwater handbook and what's in our local stormwater bylaw is a discussion about doing LID or green infrastructure. I mean, the first question I have is what was the infiltration rates that you had for your basin? Just roughly, I'm looking for order of magnitude.
Uh,
A soil, B soil, C soil.
So we did submit a full a copy of the stormwater analysis with the NOI.
Right, and I'm looking for just a general number. I mean, what's the soil on the site? Is it sandy? Is it, and again, the reason I'm asking about that is, whether it's the state level or our local, it's written so that you should be looking at low impact design and looking at potential for green infrastructure. You definitely have some really easy opportunities to do that on this site. I would not change anything about the infiltration basin, but you're doing all of your water quality through, gray infrastructure and not green infrastructure. And you do
Mhm.
definitely have opportunities at the parking lot, I would say would be the front of the building. When you look at that grading, you're creating a hole anyways. You could put a bioretention in there, no problem. Have some additional infiltration, do a much better treatment system than a gray infrastructure, your water quality structure. And the only other question, and this might be for Leah, does this fall within the MS4 and do they need 90% TSS removal, and do they need to have phosphorus removal also?
So, when we updated our stormwater bylaw, they need the 90 and 60 anyway. They
Right.
do need that.
Okay.
Yeah, so to answer your question, it's a mix of B and C.
Okay.
And a D. So we use an infiltration rate of 0.27.
And that's fine. I mean, I was just curious if it was really sandy, because then I would definitely, say, why don't you just do
Yeah.
all swales and so forth. But
And-
you have a built-in situation. The other thing that you could easily do is to, right now you have your driveway coming in is pitched towards the outside, towards the wetland. You could easily pitch it in and simply have a bioretention right there to treat. I mean, there's so many like
Yeah, but
small
that's,
little lifts.
well, there's a lot of fill going on there. So there's a big cut at the 9 Millennium property line.
Yep.
And then our finished floor is 409. So about 2/3 of the way, or 1/3, if you're starting at 9 Millennium, about 1/3 of the way across the building, it is our match line.
Yep.
For the purpose of this discussion, I would skip the, removing of topsoil and all the adjustments, but call that 1/3 in as the match line. And so we're filling with structural fill under the core of the building. And then we're using a combination of cut from the loading area and imported fill of about 14,000 yards.
So you're importing
Fill
fill.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm actually giving you ways to reduce that amount of input fill. So if you could zoom in just a little
Well,
bit.
yes and no. You're giving me the opportunity to reduce that, but you're also changing the quality of the fill that I have to import to be able to use that as additional infiltration.
I'm thinking more of, a bioretention with, whatever infiltration you get because you've already done your sizing of your basin. And I look at the front of your building there with the 407, 408, the 409 finished floor elevation. That's all pitched to a catch basin right there. You can see the way it's pitched.
Right.
And then the existing grades are 3 or 4 feet lower than that. Then it pops up to 407. So I'm looking at the 407, 407, and you have a natural low spot right there. It would be a
No,
perfect place.
that's a 407 is a fill. Existing grade's 396.
Okay, so again, you're filling that. That's fine. but you're creating two, you're creating two elevations of the same, and in between that, you could easily put in a bioretention basin. I'm guessing you've put in. I mean, almost every project I see nowadays have bioretention on it. I'm just really curious why you didn't use that on this site.
Because I want, in terms of cost, I'm buying common fill to fill in that triangle. I'm not buying something gravelly that's going to infiltrate. I'd be essentially creating a wet pond if you do, if I do what you're asking by using common fill.
Right, and then you have to look at the cost of 20 grand a piece for your water quality structures. I'm just saying that on this particular site.
They're not 20 grand, they're about 7 grand.
Okay, I don't know, then are they meeting the 90% TSS removal?
Yep, they are 90% and 60. It's right in our report.
Okay, just because a vendor says it meets that doesn't mean it meet it. You need
No,
to
we
have
have the documentation from the UNH Stormwater Center that says it meets it.
And so what kind of vendor are you talking about? What is the system?
That's a HydroWorks unit, and the
Okay.
detail sheet is shown.
It is very,
It's
very
a Hydrodrone?
uncommon. Okay, it's very uncommon to get that type of TSS removal. You usually have to play with the total suspended solid sizes. And just because, again, I would have to look at that. I'm not sure what, Graves has looked at, but I don't know.
Graves reviewed all the hydraulic calculations and found them to be in order. That's right in their report to the planning board.
I guess the bottom line is both the state and our local bylaw on stormwater wants you to do green infrastructure or low impact design or whatever, and this is a gray system. And I don't see why you couldn't do something on this site. So I guess I'm trying to find out from you, other than potentially saving a couple bucks, which I don't know if you are going to, why you can't just basically incorporate some green infrastructure into this site. I don't see why. There were many times when the site doesn't really allow it.
So green infrastructure isn't always just, like you're saying, installing a bioretention cell. It's also designing the site to minimize the impact. So we have a 10.7 acre site that you could see we've pulled the contours right to the tie-in point and followed our limited clearing of that, so that we're maintaining almost 7 acres of the site as wooded, a lot of which is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Correct. And the owners at some point could expand, and I wouldn't.
They couldn't, and they would have to come back at that point if they did.
I understand that.
It.
And I'm not looking to restrict any of that. That's not what I'm saying. But to me, you haven't given any kind of effort. It is so common, it's so routine nowadays to do green infrastructure. So for me, with the proposed changes to the regulations coming, this will not be a conversation that we're having now. It will be, you have to do it.
Right.
So I'm just wondering why you just don't do it. It is better for the environment. It is better for the owners. It has a higher pollution reduction rate. It has a better water quality, but it's also helping your overall stormwater. You're looking at now the type of rainfall events that we're having. It just gives them more resilience for the site and for the future. So I don't understand why you're not using
I don't disagree. But in this particular instance where we know that we're over ledge, so we have from the old plans that are on file at your office, there's a plan that shows all the borings and test pits where they hit refusal across the site. So we're dealing with ledge in C and D soils. 2, it's the cost of importing the soil that would support that. And 3, we have to design to the current regulations, not what will be coming or what is coming.
So the current regulations recommend using LID. It promotes
recommend. Right.
No, it doesn't just read the actual wording of it. It wants you to use it. And it's just the way it's written. Our local bylaw says that you should investigate and use green infrastructure or low impact design. I'm not proposing or trying to make you change your whole thing. It's just like, you've got nothing on here, and you have really potential sites here that would be really easy to do. And I don't understand why you wouldn't embrace that. I just don't get that. And it's our responsibility to protect the wetlands by adding that green infrastructure, by taking the driveway coming in and actually, instead of pitching it towards the wetlands and pitch it in towards a bioretention, would reduce any potential impact in heavy intense rainstorms to have overflow into the wetlands. So it ties back to the wetlands. It enhances the water quality of the site. And I'm not saying doing it for every place. I think the infiltration's a good approach. I wouldn't say change any of that. I'm looking at a fairly easy change. And I just don't understand why something like that you wouldn't want to do if it's going to make it better. And from my perspective, it will help protect the wetlands in a much more enhanced way. I guess
I understand your want, but I think I've explained that we're over ledge. We're
so why don't we do this? I
The
want to
cost
go
of
around.
importing the soil
Yeah, okay, I can debate
to
that
support
all
what
you
you're
want,
doing.
but let us
that?
take a step back, because I'm
Okay.
going to look and read the regulations very closely. I am going to show you that you can be done more cost effectively, and then we'll come back, because right now we still have some unfinished items. I mean, in general, I don't have a big issue with what's going on the site. I just for me, it's just like we have the responsibility to protect the wetlands. I see a very easy way to enhance that protection of the wetlands, and I'm not seeing why we can't do that. So that's my thing. I will check the regulations. I will check the wording, because I believe our stormwater bylaw is um, a little bit more definitive about using green infrastructure. But then again, we're not talking about the whole thing. So I will get back to you on that, but that's something that I'm definitely going to spend a little time. And basically, I'll come back and give you why and what it's based on the regulations. And then you guys can either say yes or no to that. And then we as a commission will need to decide on that. So but to me, it's just like, this is my responsibility being on the Conservation Commission. So is to protect the wetlands.
I understand that. And we have, we're designing the site to be compliant in such a manner that works with the existing soil conditions, topography, and cost. And you can't always have what is nice to have. It's what needs to have.
I'm not even thinking of what's nice to have. I'm trying to help the owners of the company, because I think that, in the long run, they get a better site because of it. But let us do our own kind of, I want to do my own research.
The bylaw says it's the use of non-structural LID management practices and better site design are encouraged to minimize reliance on structural management. I'm reading directly from your bylaw.
And again, I will go back through everything, both the state and local level, and I will do my own kind of assessment. So
certainly.
So let me get around to the rest of the members and see if they have any other comments or questions. So Travis, any kind of comments or questions for the applicant?
Aside from follow up on that conversation, the work within the 100-foot buffer, I see a planting plan. I think that's landscaping. I'm trying to zoom in. Landscaping around the building outside of the 100-foot buffer. Is there any planting plan for the disturbed areas within the 100-foot buffer? Outside of your actual structures that you're putting in?
Yeah, so physical plantings, there's a slope down from the parking that's kind of at the southern part of the building. There's a grass slope down to the infiltration basin. Then there's the 10-foot wide berm to maintain it, and then grass slope down from there.
Is that planting, is that on your plan sheet? I just can't find it.
Yeah, it's on the landscape plan. So that you need to maintain access to that berm that's around the perimeter of the basin, but everything that's down slope of that, oh, too fast. Let's go back. Right there. It doesn't really show it. So if you look at the grading, and sorry, Leah, could you go back to the grading and drainage plan? One more. No, there you go. So see, there's where the contours kind of come down to the 400, and then there's a 398 and a 398. So that's creating a level area around the infiltration basin. So this would be need to be mowed twice a year at a minimum, just from that 398 contour down into the 392. Everything that's outside of that would be left to, take over naturally. So it would be initially seeded, and then that part of it would take
Okay,
over.
what would it be seeded with? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. I can't find what it'll be seeded with.
We would be flexible on that. I mean, we could do a conservation mix on the outside slope and let that grow back.
Okay,
So
and
that's-
why does it have to be mowed twice a year? Is that to keep down trees and shrubs?
Yeah, that's to keep shrub growth out of it so that it continues to function properly. That's right in the stormwater management standards. Then we have a lawn area that's in the middle of the parking and first loading dock. You can see where the 12-inch HDPE label is. You've got a L-shaped concrete sidewalk that leads to the back stairs, but the rest of that kind of chubby P shape would be green space, and then as well as the back of the building.
So I guess I'm just looking at the stuff within the 100-foot buffer, trying
Yeah,
to
within
figure
the
out what
100 foot,
vegetation would be there.
There's not much because the way we've designed it is we have room at the base of the retaining wall to build the wall. So you have your limit of clearing, erosion control barrier, a level area that allows you room to construct the retaining wall. And then at the top of the retaining wall, you'd have a chain link fence and then a wooden guardrail so that someone wouldn't drive off of that. So that's a pretty narrow strip on the right-hand side of the driveway as you're coming in. Then you have the pavement itself, and then you have the left-hand side where we could propose some additional plantings there on the left-hand side of the driveway. Right now, the intention was to have that mowable because one of the fire department conditions is they want to see the street number from the street. So we're trying to give a clear line of sight from Millennium Drive label there at the cul-de-sac into the building. They also want to see there's a beacon that you mount on the wall outside of your sprinkler room so that if the sprinklers are triggered, there's a red beacon that flashes, and that's another condition that the fire department wants to see that beacon from the street. So they know where they're going because it directs them to the sprinkler room that has exterior access. So it's kind of a balancing act there.
All right.
Anything else, Travis?
Nope.
Patrick, anything?
I don't think I have anything else
Okay.
at the moment.
Jonathan, anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Got nothing.
Yeah, so and then what I'll do now is just open it up to the public. And if anyone has any comments or questions on this project, please just raise your hand and we'll call on you. And other than that, as far as what's left to do, Leah, as far as kind of just getting kind of the last little bits from Graves to make sure there's nothing else here. Do we have anything else that we need or any special conditions that you're thinking about?
I didn't go as far as conditions just yet.
Okay.
But
All right.
just like I said, the limit of disturbance label would be appreciated.
Okay, and we see that you're staying the 25 feet except for one small area.
Well,
On the
I
driveway.
get right up to it. I don't exceed it. I come right up
Yeah.
to the limit of it. So
Uh,
one thing I left out was time frame. So the Gassics do have this property under agreement. The seller is based out of California and looking to close, as are they, as soon as the approvals are issued from hopefully this commission and planning board. Planning board, we go back on Monday night, and they already have told us that they will be drafting their approval to be ready for Monday night. The hope honestly would be to obtain approval from the commission in the short order if is possible, because even though it's only September 5th, guys like us in the construction business are already starting to think about winter conditions and frozen ground and paying extra for concrete and temporary heat and everything that comes along with trying to build a building in New England in the winter. So if there's anything else that we can provide short of what's already been discussed this evening, please let us know and we'll get right on it.
All right. I like I said, I don't think, going beyond just the lack of LID or green infrastructure, I don't see a lot of issues here. It's town water, town sewer. Yeah, you're not impacting the whole lot, but I would understand that. I would think some of the plans is potentially future expansion, which I would expect when you buy a piece of land like that. I don't have any issues with that. So I don't have, a lot of other things. It's more just, looking at something and having something shout to me, wow, this would be really easy to enhance the stormwater system on this site. Anyone from the audience, from the public has raised their hand or anything? Any questions?
Nothing from the public.
All right, thank you. So that's taken care of. So, so as far as that goes, we can continue it for the next hearings in 2 weeks, correct?
Yeah, the 19th.
The 19th. I mean, based on where we're at, as long as everything's kind of taken care of through the peer reviewer, we should be able to wrap up whatever on the next time. Of course, we just need to wait until we get that information. But from a big picture standpoint, there's no, there's not a lot of issues here. It's really just for me is a lack of opportunity not taken. So other than that, anything else, Leah, that we should mention prior?
Nope.
Okay. So I would go back to the applicant. Is this, if you'd like to request a continuance, always that's the purview of the applicant.
Yes,
And-
yep, we would. And just, Leah, please, if you hear from anything from Graves, please forward that to us when you receive it so we can, if there's anything to address, we can get right on it.
And
Absolutely.
again, we're not looking to delay anything. Our thing is, what we are on the commission for. We are all volunteers. We're not looking to slow anything down. What we are looking to do is protect the wetlands and, just in general, protect, as much as we can when it comes to stormwater and provide provide what's required and what should be being done on a site. So.
Understood.
All right. Oh, have you said that? So it's to the 19th. Do I have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue to September 19th.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Let's do a roll call vote. Travis,
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Emily.
Yes.
I am also a yes. And I will try to get Leah some of my comments, so we're not waiting until the 19th to give you that information. Try to give it to you ahead of time.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 8 o'clock. What's up next? 7:45 notice of intent.
Yep.
Okay, let me go. All right, 7:45. All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the removal of underground storage tanks at 88 Worcester Road. And who's here to discuss that?
Good evening, Matt Byrne, professional wetland scientist and senior ecologist with BSC Group. And I'm here with Chris Horan, who's with Synergy Environmental Services.
You have the floor.
Okay, thanks. I understand that a notice of intent was filed for the removal of the underground storage tanks at 88 Worcester Street. And there were some outstanding issues that the commission wanted to have addressed. And BSC Group was asked to help button that up. So I think we have gotten everything that the commission is looking for. And so we just want to present the revised plan according to the requirements of the requested by the commission. And this includes riverfront area covering almost the entire site. The FEMA flood elevation, which is coincident, the 100-year flood elevation is coincident with regulatory floodway on the plan right on the eastern side of the site. And then there is a bordering vegetated wetland surrounding the north and west side of the site. One of the issues is that the delineation was getting a little old. And so we had on August 25th, we had BSC, one of our lead delineators, out to delineate BVW. We've refreshed that line and provided paired DEP wetland plots data with the submission. We resubmitted the stormwater checklist that had been prepared in July. The butter notification was accomplished, and we sent proof of that. It was done on the 29th, and we sent proof of that over to Jan on the 30th. And this site, given its condition, this is an existing development within riverfront area. There is existing pavement. All the work is contained within existing pavement. And so we are seeking an approval of that work based on the fact that there'll be no new alteration of wetland resources on the site. We do understand the 25-foot no alteration zone because of the existing pavement being closer in some places than that. The existing pavement would represent the limit of work. So there are portions of the site where we can't be outside of that 25-foot. So with that, I'd entertain any questions?
Sure. Leah, you want to give your report?
Sure. So BSC did provide the revised plan that's in front of you now. However, the original plan set was multiple sheets, so some of these comments pertain to the other sheets. There were a lot of references to hay for erosion control that we asked to be changed to straw. There was also reference to Pennsylvania's erosion control manual. There were two different lines on the plan. Limit of disturbance and limit of work were two different things. So we were asking for clarification on that, as well as the erosion control line being beyond the limit of work line. So more clarification needed there. And then the erosion control line was in the no disturb, and I didn't know if it was possible to move it out of the no disturb, or if it's not, then you would need to submit a waiver request and the associated fee to be in the no disturb. That's the only thing I noticed within it, though. And then we are waiting on a full-sized hard copy plan set. And my last question was, what is your dewatering plan?
All right. The full-size plan set was supposed to be delivered by hand on the 30th, so I'm a little chagrined to find that didn't happen, but we will get that. And we will regarding the other plan sheets that reference Pennsylvania and hay, we can address those. Regarding the, can you, Could we look at can we look at the confusion over the limit of work and erosion control line on the new plan?
On the new.
So would it be, I think what we would plan to do is have the limit of work at the existing pavement. Is that amenable to the commission?
So, Jan, can you pull up the other one that you were on a minute ago? I'm just trying to find the line here.
The limit of work is pretty, that's,
Oops, here.
Yeah, I mean, so I see limit of disturbance much tighter around the tank area, then limit of work like zooms out from that. And then if sediment filter is your line for erosion control, it's 3 different lines, and I guess I'm wondering, like, we usually ask for limit of disturbance, and it's usually synonymous with the erosion control line. And then depending on where that line is falling, whether or not you need a waiver request for the 25-foot no disturb.
so
Uh,
just a quick question. So this is the old BP gas station, correct?
Yes.
And what you're doing is you're going in and remediating the tanks that probably had leaks and so forth, and you're removing the tanks. Are you also removing soils too?
I would say this is Chris Horan. We don't have any record that the tanks have leaked. There were tanks
Okay.
in the past that leaked. It doesn't mean we won't run into some contaminated material. And if we do that, that would be removed and not returned to the ground. That's typically shipped off.
So I think some of these things are pretty straightforward as far as, getting clarifications and having a set of plan that your limit of disturbance may be limit of excavation or something, but you're going to be putting stockpiles and so forth and so forth, and usually it's if we have one line which is and you had requested to put it at the edge of the pavement, there are some areas that would be within our 25-foot no disturb. It is an existing pavement. We go around the commission, but I don't see a huge issue with that. I think, having some of the stockpiles and where they are in such close proximity to, the wetlands that we need to talk about that. I don't know if you have any place on this site that's not within the 100-foot buffer. That may be a kind of an issue with the stockpiles. I don't know, Leah, if you had looked at that, or a potential of just maybe doing a little bit extra on the erosion control around those stockpiles, just so that we don't have issues of any, based on the type of rainstorms that we'll be getting. Stockpiles are pretty prime to flow wherever. So, I think that's fairly, I mean, the overall project's fairly straightforward. I think we just need to kind of figure out how to get the plans to represent, what you guys are doing, because I don't think anyone here wants to prevent you from removing tanks from the ground. Kind of short order. I did have one question, and then I'll go around to the other commissioners. Just wondering if you have checked on the FEMA, if there's a preliminary adjustment on any of the FEMA maps. And again, I understand, as far as the existing FEMA elevation or line for the, for the 100-year floodplain is on it, but almost all of Eastern Mass have been updated with the floodplains, and checking preliminary FEMA maps is a good way to do it. This is a tough site. Not that it's going to impact what you're doing right now, but it may impact things in the future. But it's good to understand what those preliminary lines are. because that's truly where you're going to get flooding too. So that's more of a process thing. It's less of regulatory. It's more like, yeah, well, if the whole site's going to flood, then we need to pay attention to that. So let me kind of go around to the other commission members and see if they have any other questions. Patrick, anything?
No, nothing else.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, if you have something, you can always let me know. Jonathan?
No, I didn't have any questions. I think your questions about the stockpiles, the limited disturbance, that type of stuff is important. The hay to straw, but I didn't have anything additional.
Okay, thanks. Travis?
Is the sediment filter, is that erosion control fabric staked in? Or is that something else?
Jan, if you go to sheet 2, I think they have their detail
I guess I'm
right
just,
there.
so like what Sandy said, it's the site's concrete, like right up against the trees. So I don't see how you can trench in filter fabric. So I guess if stockpiling has to occur with potentially contaminated soil, it'd be good if there were additional measures aside from just relying on the silt fence, because I just don't think you can trench it in that area. The old fence that was there was never trenched in. It was just kind of tacked on into the ground. And then
The stockpile, there is a requirement to cover the stockpiles with plastic, so.
That would be great.
Yep.
We have to do that anyway. Excuse me.
Okay, perfect.
That's state regulations, right? When you have a site like this?
I would say it's a standard practice, which we're
Okay.
required to follow standard practices, but it's not actually written into a regulation.
No, that's fine, but I think that would
There
help
it is, the
respond.
poly sheet.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would help.
that's perfect.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Emily, anything?
No questions for me, thank you.
Leah, anything else before I go out to the public? Well, you can think about that while I ask if
Okay.
if any of the public has any comments or questions. Please raise your hand using the little hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'd be happy to either answer your questions or have the applicant answer it, and we'll just follow that. Go ahead, Leah.
I was just gonna say, did you guys want to talk through what a dewatering plan would look like? I know the previous permits on this site did not go forward, but I remember a former commissioner really stressing the need to make sure dewatering was in place for this site.
So just a quick question: when you're doing a site like this, are you doing a spec for the contractor to provide a dewatering plan, or do you create your own dewatering plan?
Well, it ultimately would fall to the contractor to do it, but we're taking the tanks out, and I was just looking through the report here, and I don't see what the depth of water is. But I know there's some wells there. We can easily figure that out. But there's a couple of ways to handle that. If the water can be put in frac tanks, and then depending on what's in the water, possibly returned to the ground or possibly shipped off site. And the other thing is there's ways to really, the only thing you really need to worry about for dewatering when you're taking tanks out is you don't want them to uncontrollably come out of the ground when you cut the straps that hold them down. So a lot of times that can just be held down mechanically, or by some mechanical means when you cut the straps so that it doesn't come flying up like a submarine coming out of the water or something like that. So you can you envision what I'm talking about.
You don't want it to float.
We're not gold. Exactly. I don't. It's going to float a little bit, but I don't want it to float uncontrollably. That's my concern. Once they're out of the ground, nothing's being built, nothing's being put back in there other than fill material. So, and that's we generally use stone for that. So,
so from our perspective, either we're going to get a dewatering plan ahead of time, or we're going to put a condition in the order of conditions requiring that the dewatering plan be submitted for review by a peer reviewer. So to me, it's more like procedurally, depending upon which way you do it. It's really I mean, the wetlands are right next to the pavement. I mean, it gets wet down there. So your groundwater is probably going to be pretty high. You know, so
I would agree with that. I'm looking at the report here and it lists elevations, but it doesn't list the depths, and I'm not sure why that is. This is somebody else's
Okay.
report I'm looking at. We haven't
Yeah.
gauged the water there.
but again, I mean, I don't think we have a big problem either handling it with a condition or just getting a dewatering plan. That's up to you guys on what process you want to do. But at some point, we'd like to get eyes on that dewatering plan by a peer reviewer, and that's a pretty straightforward review. Yes, it is on the contractor. We understand that. We just want to make sure the proper protection is placed so that they're not pumping into the wetlands. I mean, pretty straightforward. Whether that's a frac tank
Right.
or whether there's treatment or whether there's testing to demonstrate that it isn't, there isn't anything in the water that would prevent it from discharging.
It wouldn't be, we could not discharge it to the wetland or surface water because that requires a NIPD's permit, which we don't
Yep.
have. So it's possible, as I said, to ship it off, or it's possible to re-inject it under either a UIC permit, or there's actually an active release tracking number that Getty's working on there. So it could be done under that as well.
Okay. I think just kind of letting us know what that process is so that we can write our conditions around that. Leah, anything to add to that conversation around the dewatering?
No.
Okay. It sounds like there's a few things with the plans that just need to be straightened out. And then I'm just looking at what else. I mean, these are all fairly straightforward.
So we'll
is-
show a limit of disturbance for the
Yep.
tank removal. We'll show stockpile locations with a note regarding covering them, and then because of the paved condition, you know, we can put erosion controls, sedimentation controls tighter to the limit of work. But we certainly won't be able to tow them in the pavement. Is that okay?
I mean, you do need, you know, when you're talking about limit of disturbance, that to me is also stockpiling. That's disturbance too. I mean, you need sufficient room to move the equipment around. We're not looking to restrict it any further. It's just that portions of the pavement does go out into the no disturb, so you would have to get a waiver for that. But I think our big concern about the stockpiles and the fact that you are going to use good practice and cover them, that relieves a lot of our kind of concerns.
Is there do you have a waiver form? A standard form for the 25-foot waiver?
It's a question within our bylaw application. It's on the second page. So if you just want to redo that sheet.
Yeah.
Will do.
And what is the fee is what, $25, Leah? Tell me if I'm right or
50.
wrong. 50, I'm sorry. Inflation. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I mean, I think we covered most everything, right, Leah? I think.
Yep.
Tighten up the plans. Just let us know on dewatering so that we can have a condition prepared to include. Unless you are going to do a dewatering plan, then submit that. And then I guess the question is if you'd like a continuance, and would you like the continuance to the 19th?
That will give us time to button these things up. Yes.
Okay. Anything from the public at this point?
Nothing from the public.
Thanks, Jan. I will go around one more time very quickly to see if anyone else have any comments or questions. Emily.
Nothing additional, thank you.
Patrick.
Nope.
Travis.
Nope.
And Jonathan.
No.
Okay, I'm all set. Having have a request for continuance to the 19th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to continue to September 19th.
Do I have a second?
Second,
We'll have a roll call vote. Emily,
yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
I am also a yes. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to Leah. And then other than that, we'll see you on the 19th.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.
Okay. So Leah, as far as continuances, all we have is 59 Pleasant Street.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me go back to the lead sheet. All right, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing via Zoom for the construction of 4 multifamily buildings at 59 Pleasant Street. And who's here to speak to that application?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Steve O'Connell from Turning Point Engineering.
You have the floor.
Thank you very much. As a quick recap, we have met all of the peer review criteria, responded to review comments. I believe you're in possession of those. We have also satisfied comments provided by Arthur Allen of Ecotech. And if you recall at the last hearing, I had requested for you to keep the hearing open just in the event that there were any plan changes that were resulting from the following ZBA meeting. And I'm happy to report that we went through all of the waivers with the ZBA. And it does not appear that there will be any further plan changes as a result of actions by the ZBA. So we are happy to proceed as the commission would like, but my belief and understanding is that you were ready to wrap this up, but I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. I'm happy to answer any questions. Nothing has changed on the project for a couple of meetings now with regards to conservation. As you recall, we have tiny little bit of the site in the buffer zone, a little bit of one of the buildings, and some of the stormwater infrastructure and facilities, primarily the infiltration basin. We are exceeding stormwater requirements. We're meeting all of your bylaw requirements in the stormwater bylaw. We're meeting the requirements in the wetland bylaw. We've only asked for a waiver so that because this is a comprehensive permit, the zoning board of appeals will issue those permits. And we're just asking the Conservation Commission to issue the order under the Wetland Protection Act. But we have met exceeded all of your stormwater requirements with regards to treatment, removal, phosphorus, 90%, more than 90% TSS removal. So there's a lot of positive things associated with the development of this site that I'm happy to report. So I could keep talking. I could probably talk for another hour, but I don't think
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we need to do that. I think we have a few cleanup questions, but I think we're pretty well through our review of this. So Leah, if you want to just go through kind of your last few questions that you have, and talk a little bit about some conditions.
Sure. So I don't have any remaining questions. I just had the 4 potential special conditions. I do think we talked through them last time, but I can read them again if you guys are ready, or if you want to see if anyone else has questions first. Either way is fine with me.
Why don't you just go through them, because I think then I'll go around, but I think we're getting close. So
okay. So I had If it isn't already covered by a bond through the ZBA, the commission will hold a bond for stormwater infrastructure, site stabilization, and erosion control. If it is covered through the ZBA's bond, we would just ask for a copy. The area identified as parcel A shall be conveyed to the commission prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance and final acceptance by the town. If the areas of the proposed stormwater basins are to be utilized for temporary stormwater collection during construction, they shall not be fully excavated until this temporary use is over. And all trail work shall be completed prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
All right, so to the applicant, is there anything there that's new or you have any questions on it?
No, nothing new, nothing.
Okay. So I will go around the commission to see if anyone has anything more to add or any other conditions. Emily, anything else?
Sorry, my mouse is not cooperating. No new questions for me.
All right, Patrick,
No questions.
Jonathan,
Nothing from me.
and Travis.
No questions.
Yeah, I think I also have no questions. I don't have any recommendations for other special conditions. Obviously, we'll have our standard conditions also. But I would just like to offer up to anyone in the public who has any comments or questions where we're at with this project at this point. We've gone through, review, question and answering of the applicant. Peer review has gone through the stormwater, and that's all been vetted out. But if you do have any questions or comments, what we're doing now is kind of putting through some special conditions just to make sure things like the trail gets completed prior to COC, those type of things. And COC is certificate of compliance. If there's anyone in the public, so Jan, let me know if we have any comments or questions from the public.
Nothing from the public.
Okay. Having gone around, I don't think we have anything else. Leah, anything else other than I think we're all set. I think we're all set to have a vote. Have a motion, I should say. Do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions with special conditions that Leah just went through?
I'll move to close the hearing and issue order of conditions for 59 Pleasant Street with the additional special conditions as discussed tonight by the agent.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Emily,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
I am also a yes. The motion carries unanimously. So good luck with the project. Let us know if you have any questions. Oh, you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Good night. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right, Leah, what do we have left here?
We do have a presentation for 27 Upton Street. If you want to do that next, otherwise we have 3 hearings that
need to be read in and withdrawn.
Read in and continued or withdrawn. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we do, if someone's here to give a presentation, why don't we let them go first?
That would be me.
All right.
So hi, everybody.
Go ahead.
I'll go for it. My name is Jean Christie. I'm a senior engineer with Ty and Bond. I was hoping that John Grant from GSX Ventures, who's the developer of the 27 Upton Street project, would be here with me, but I don't believe he's online. If you recall, a couple years ago, the town put out an RFP for the redevelopment of the 27 Upton Street property, which was formerly your highway department building and facility.
Okay.
They're looking for mixed use development, so residential with affordability component. So GSX proposed on it, and us with Ty and Bond, we were, helping with that one. And they won the project. So they have been working recently, or over the past year and a half or so, to secure funding, to start looking at, you know, what are we going to do on the site. And so we're at a very preliminary schematic level right now. We haven't even finished survey yet, but we have been out there to delineate wetlands. Jan, if you have a screen you can share, I'd like to show that overall picture. So what we wanted to do today is give you a quick snapshot of what the project is looking like at this date. Understanding that we're aggressive at this point, and get some initial feedback from the commission, good, bad, or indifferent. I'll take whatever we can get. So the existing facility is the old highway department. You know, there's a couple buildings. Pretty much everything up to the wetland limits around the perimeter of the site is paved. There might be a little bit area of unpaved between the facility and wetlands. On this plan, and this is going to be tough for everybody to see, I think. The shorter dashed thicker line is the wetland boundary. That's what the town had delineated a few years ago. We refreshed it last year, and have been working since then on what works economically for the project, for the number of units, the number of parking spaces, with construction costs these days, and what we can actually fit on this site. So what we have right now, and I'll take a step back first, is, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we presented the same plan to the planning board to get some feedback from them. There's, some aspects of this project that don't jive with the zoning bylaws in terms of where the building is placed. But there's some reasons for why the building is placed where it is. Typically they think the planning board likes to see the building right up against the street. But if you recall, the fire station is across the street, and I understand they have a very loud alarm when the trucks are coming out. So being as this is a residential facility, we wanted to push that back. The second reason we wanted the building kind of further into the property was because of stormwater. And I heard some discussions from stormwater earlier tonight, and all of that provided some useful feedback already for me. Looking at where stormwater actually could possibly work on the site, with the assumption that groundwater is pretty shallow. But anyway, so on this plan, as you can see, there's wetlands surrounding the entire facility, up to Upton Street, basically. So we have a very defined area where we can work. Right at this point, we're squeezing in 126 residential units and 207 parking spaces, which is just 2 spaces over what we're required by zoning. So we are chock full at this point. We are looking at wetland fill at this point as well. I'm not a wetland scientist, so I can't opine on quality of wetland in this area. And I wish I had somebody else on the call with me to do that, but that could happen later. But from a start here, we're looking at having the stormwater basin closer up front. We will also look at, incorporating more LID features based on previous discussions tonight. To fill up that parking lot with green infrastructure versus a sea of pavement and gray infrastructure. But I think the bigger topic I wanted to get initial feedback on is pushing up against the wetland limits, working within that 25-foot no disturb buffer, and even the wetland fill aspects that we're contemplating at this point.
Sorry, Sandy, you're on mute, but so was I.
We're both talking. Hey, get off mute. You would think we'd know this by now. I'll give you my perspective and just kind of my time on the commission. The 25-foot no disturb is truly a no disturb under the local bylaw. We typically, there are times when, we'll make adjustments and so forth. I think you need to get very creative to convince us not to have that 25-foot buffer, and how you use it and so forth. It's, typically as long as it's vegetated, we're fine. There may be some areas that it doesn't make sense, but you need to really convince us on that. And I know that the short dash lines is the wetlands line. What is the longer dash line that's red?
I'm not entirely positive. I think it was like a 25-foot offset from the building. I'm not sure why
Okay.
that's helpful, but
And again, as far as like, as far as how many units you're trying to get in here and those type of things, although I may understand all that type of stuff, really when it comes to the Conservation Commission, it's about protecting the wetlands, and building up to the wetlands line is not protecting the wetlands. So that would be it. I would, because you're such a tight site here, you may want to look at some sort of percentage of porous pavements. And yes, you have to, I don't know how much impervious is there now. I know the site, and you might probably have some questions about contamination on the site too, which is a whole different thing. But and again, that's not specifically under our purview, but we are interested in that. Maybe maybe not 100% porous pavement, but somehow doing porous pavement, being creative with a reservoir course, whether that is um, lined or something because of your distance to groundwater. I mean, I think you can be as creative as you want. You certainly can use some of the TCFC methods for porous pavement that UNH has, so that you can kind of do your calculations, so that you can demonstrate that you're meeting it. Of course, I'd be into green roofs and everything else, but I understand that probably not going to happen on a residential building. But we can ask and so forth. You do have, looks like you have some amenities at the rear of the site. Probably a paver system, again, doing something porous, and just kind of being creative. I guess, having just an open basin may not, may be a little bit efficient, but you're going to have to balance that with the loss of area. I think would be, open to like some more creative ways of doing things. I would look at, other things that you may do. If you've had your wetland scientists out there looking at the wetlands, is there any invasives? Is there anything that you can do to enhance the wetlands? Is there any, impaired wetlands in the area? Again, just trying to think of different ways to be creative about trying to convince us that you should build within the no build zone. Hence, the name of the no build is no build. So that would be it. Yeah, as far as the number of units, to be quite honest, that's not up to us. That's fine, whatever you can get. As far as the parking spaces, again, that's a planning board issue. I would leave it up to you as far as whether the amount of parking is appropriate and what type of options you have there. I was just looking at the location. It is right across from the fire station,
conveniently.
and near the new public library, or the new addition to the public library stuff. So I'd leave that up. Let me just go around to the other commissioners to see if they have any other kind of comments or questions. Emily, anything to add to kind of, and again, this is preliminary. Nothing that we're saying is applicable for any permit that they're going after. They're looking for some input ahead of time. Nothing we say, and I'll say this, that nothing we say is binding. We don't have a full set of plans in front of us, so we're just giving kind of our reaction and so forth. So
I have a question about the unit that's over the buffer zone. I don't know what my question is, but that feels concerning to me.
Are you-
The top right.
The top right, that's like just touching the actual wetland line. That's not even the
Yeah,
buffer zone, it's
exactly.
the wetland
Or
line.
wetland line,
Yeah.
excuse me, over the red line.
Yep, I see it.
Yep.
Valid concern.
That's
yeah,
it for me.
and obviously, I understand the process that's going on. That this is to soften us up, because we're showing building and everything development right to the edge. So when they pull it away from it a little bit, we're going to be pretty. We're going to be, oh wow, this is such a big improvement. 25 no build is 25 no build. Patrick, anything else, Emily?
If it's literally on the wetlands, how do you stop flooding in there?
Yeah, there's so many
it is.
questions.
Yeah, and that's a good point that we'll have to look at that.
It would be
Of course.
very hard to comply with stormwater and your TSS and phosphorus removal on a site like this. be very challenging. But
Yes.
Patrick, anything?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay. Jonathan, anything?
My only comment would be or I guess the concern I would have is with depending on how you set the parking lot up, and again, talking about green space or porous pavement or whatnot is snow storage. So you've squeezed quite a bit of parking in there, but there's not inherently it looks like it would go towards the common in that area to push all that snow. So you may want to consider where you're pushing that snow, because that may impact depending on where that is in relation to the wetlands and whatnot.
Yeah, they
would
can
be some
always.
storage.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a very good point, Jonathan. They could also elevate all the buildings and put parking underneath them. I don't know if that
We've
would do
explored that.
if that budget would be a budget buster, but that would be one way to be able to reduce the impact. But those are questions beyond our purview. So, anything else, Jonathan?
No, I was just it was 90 degrees today, so I'm thinking about snow. So that was my only
That's fair. That's fair. Travis, any other comments or questions? And again, we're just trying to give them direction.
Yeah, it looks like almost all of the site would end up being within the 100-foot buffer if the NWIs are right, which they're not perfect. Are there any other considerations right now, Sandy, about the 100-foot in addition to the 25, or should we just leave it for now?
No, I think there's a lot of consideration, things like floodplain, resiliency, and what's happening, the timing of this project, and when it's going to be put in. What are the changes to the regulations? What's the changes to the floodplains? I mean, there's lots of issues in and around this site, and to have a kind of a pretty picture or basically a graphic representation is a first introduction. Obviously, there is outside, nothing to do with us, pressure being put on the site to do different things. And there's not just the wetlands regulations, all the other regulations in town. But again, from our perspective, the 25-foot no disturb is every single time we've waived from that, it's been very well documented. I don't know if Leah, I can't think of a time when we just said, yeah, no 25-foot. There's always been a reason.
Correct.
So I don't know if that's helpful. I'm all for very creative stormwater approaches. I think just the bigger issue is, I think different people have said this, it's you're right up against a wetland. Not only do you have snow, but what's going to happen? Is there a floodplain here? Is there a proposed floodplain here? Is there all those type of standard things that you'd be looking at once you get kind of going on this? But I don't know if you have any other questions for us.
I don't think I have specific questions. I think I kind of got the answers that I was expecting tonight, so that's fine. Yeah. Again, we are in like due diligence mode. We haven't done survey yet. We've done some subsurface drilling just to get understanding of if there is contamination on site. We haven't done geotech for the building design yet. So we're still early in this. So getting this information now is really helpful as we work into, the next steps of the project. So
how long is your due diligence period?
It's not like a binding due diligence from a real estate perspective. It's like my engineering due diligence work.
Okay.
So, like we're ready to get into the next steps of it once, we've had these couple of meetings. So.
Yeah. And again, there's always going to be 20 ways to develop a site. And then there's always 1 or 2 ways or 3 that's the most efficient. I mean, that's just based on if you're doing residential and you have a single corridor, it's the width of the building. I mean, there's just certain norms and stuff, but have fun with it.
I appreciate the opportunity to get creative with stormwater. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that's there, but I would probably be pretty safe to say, but both on the state level and on the local level, a plan like this would never be approved. Not just with us, but also with DEP. I can imagine the comment letter you'd get from DEP on this one. Oh, and you get your DEP number.
Understood.
So, yeah. But I also understand what you're doing, and this is just an initial introduction that this is coming. Is the whole rest of the site wetlands?
If we zoom out of that view a little bit, there's some upland, you know, to the left-hand side on the other side of the post office. That we have another remote parking lot for like kind of overflow. So, but I think everything around the left and top of the main development and right is wetland.
Okay. Well, think about being creative about where the wetlands are and looking at the condition of the wetlands.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's anything even in with that, but you know, the first
It's worth
it's
looking
not,
at, yeah.
yeah, and to be honest, it's not a conservation commission issue, but having overflow cars, we have to walk along the roadway is kind of not preferable.
Mhm.
So, but again, that's things that you can look at. So, all
Well,
right.
I appreciate your time tonight.
No problem.
And the feedback.
Good luck.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye-bye. All right, Leah. So next we need to,
If
see
you
here.
want, while we're in the section of discussion items, because I think we do have an attendee in case there's any questions.
Okay.
So 116 Creeper Hill Road. I was alerted to this by National Grid. So this is like a bit of an access drive / like access roadway of sorts out to property in the back. I believe it's called Sergeant's Island. It's got a house on it. So the abutter that lives in that house put some fill in on that access road to like level it out and I think possibly widen it as well. When National Grid was out there and they noticed that work that they had not authorized, they CC'd us on their letter to the surrounding folks there, trying to figure out who did it and you know, what action National Grid was going to take going forward. They also documented that it's potentially a wetland fill
Okay.
by the abutter doing that. So then I sent a letter once they got responses back, they were able to figure out which abutter it was that did this. So then I sent a letter directly to him. We've been in contact with him since. He fully understands what happened and is in pursuit of a wetland scientist to take him through an after the fact NOI. So tonight I just wanted to update you guys and say that my thoughts were if we don't receive that filing by October 3rd, which would give him two deadlines to file by, I'll reach back out to him unless there's further action you guys wanted to take at this time, but he was very amenable to straightening it out going forward.
All right, that sounds good. Just a quick question. How is National Grid involved in this? What is their role?
Sorry, I left that detail out. So they have their easement to the power lines is like pretty much overlaps with that access drive.
Oh, okay. So National Grid is more just they have an easement. They maintain it or whatever, but they're not widening it. It was the homeowner that widened it, and they wanted us to know that they didn't do it. So that's where they're coming in.
That's most of where it stands. I think Grid might have had plans about that road going forward, but they hadn't gotten that far yet. We do have our attendee here, Erin, on the line from National Grid, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. If she has anything more to kind of contribute to it, or if there's, go ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I can't seem to get my video working, but my name is Erin Worski. I'm one of the lead environmental scientists at National Grid. And we were out there just doing some wetland delineations for a few upcoming maintenance projects that we have Just to correct the record, it is National Grid owned property. We own it in fee. And the adjacent property owner does have easement to cross that access road for use to get to their property. And so from National Grid's perspective, I think what we would like to see is, similar to what Leah has asked for, is a plan for remediation. We would strongly prefer that remediation plan be conditioned for review and approval by National Grid so that it doesn't interfere with any sort of access to our 4 transmission lines that run along that corridor.
So this is the way I look at this. If you own the property in fee, and it's the homeowner that has an easement over it, as owner, you would have to be part of the submission of any notice of intent because you would have to sign off on it as the owner. So it just confuses our perspective on it just a little bit. At this point, I think it's more of a discussion between you and the abutter and what they have for rights on your property, and anything that they would do with, remediation or whatever else, they need to get it approved by you before they, because the first thing we would say is that if you're going to be doing work on someone else's property, then you need permission from them. It sounds like you're having conversations, but I would think that you need to be on board with them on whatever the notice of intent being submitted. That's between you and the homeowner, I would think, whoever has the easement on your property. So
So our understanding is that, if they're going to file a notice of intent, that is correct. They're going to need our approval. But if this is part of a restoration plan, that is something that, I guess the notice of intent is appealable by the abutter. So I guess it depends on how you guys are kind of going to be operating. Are you going to be operating under an after the fact notice of intent or request for restoration plan?
So typically the way we do this is if we reach out to a homeowner and they understand what's going on and they want to do an after notice of intent to correct the situation, we will typically, allow that. It just makes things go a little bit easier. If it, bogs down or something, then we would, have different actions to what Leah was saying, giving them a timetable and so forth. My only concern is if they have a timetable to submit, that you just need to be on board with it because you will need to sign off as the owner of the property. So.
Yeah, understood. I guess we don't have any intention of being a co-applicant though for this restoration effort.
And I'm not saying you have to.
Okay.
To be quite honest, that's between you and them. We don't care who does it, to be quite honest. And whatever that agreement is, and that to me is more of a civil thing between the two of you and what you agree upon. All we really care about is what the actual notice of intent is, or what the work is, and that someone is responsible for doing that work, and that the owner is aware of it and they have signed off on the application, just to make sure that then whoever is submitting that NOI is not doing it without the actual owner's permission. That's all.
Sure. Okay, understood.
So yeah. So so it's just something that we want to appreciate, kind of the clarification that you guys own it in fee, because it doesn't, in a big picture, if they've already said, yeah, we'll do a notice of intent to clean this up, we're fine with that. We just want to make sure we follow the regulations. That's all. And who does the work, and you guys have decided, we don't need to be involved in that.
Okay.
So anything else, Leah, on that, or did I get it kind of right?
Nope, that's all I got.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions on that? At this point, it's really the homeowner has responded in a positive way. Let us give them an opportunity to get the notice of intent in. Leah, if you can give us any updates, that's great. Otherwise, I think you've already done what you need to do.
Okay.
What's up next, Leah? So thank you, Erin, for being on the call and just letting us know where, National Grid, where they're coming from. So thank you.
Sure, no, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
All right.
Do
All
you
right.
want to backtrack to the hearings that we need to clean up?
Okay, so let me go to lead sheet. Okay.
So I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
When somebody withdraws, we usually still just like bring that up in a meeting to publicly recognize that it was withdrawn, but does their withdrawal like close the hearing by default itself, or should we still open the hearing, recognize the withdrawal and close it?
I think, and again, I would actually have to get into the details of this. My understanding is because we have an open public hearing, we would open the public hearing and simply by saying that the applicant is withdrawing without prejudice, which is what's allowed, then the hearing is stopped. I mean, if they've
Okay.
requested it, I don't think, I think that's how simple it is. I've done it a few times and it's really just the applicant, requesting, to withdraw without prejudice. And then
Sure.
that pretty ends the process and nothing, there's no further deliberation. I don't think there's any further votes,
Okay.
but okay. Yeah, as far as just making that statement, to be honest, I don't think we actually even have to vote on it because once it's withdrawn, it's gone. So,
Got it.
all right. So start with 10 McGill. So I'll just read it in and then we'll just close it out based on the requests pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for the construction of a pool at 10 McGill Drive. The applicant has requested that this RDA is being withdrawn without prejudice. I believe no further action is required.
Okay.
And then the next one is pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination for construction of a fence at 23 Cortland Way. The applicant has requested to withdraw this application without prejudice. No further discussion is needed on this. All right, and the only one that's left is the continuance.
Yeah.
Okay, so pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Bylaw, Management Bylaw, and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent, application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit, application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a warehouse facility at 124 Westboro Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to October 3rd, 10/3. Do I have a motion to continue the hearing, this hearing for 124 Westboro Road to October 3rd?
So motioned.
I know, got a couple so moved there, so I'll take the second one as a second on that. So you can figure it out, Jan or Leah, on who said what. Having a motion and have it seconded, do a roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. Any other action items?
Yeah, the last action item is so Highfields subdivision, which you guys might know more as McGill Drive. As you probably remember, was before us, I don't know, some months ago, starting to close out that subdivision. We issued them a handful of COCs and partial COCs with the exception of one because they had to do about 10,000 square feet of wetland replication. And the report from their wetland scientist came back that it was not successful or not adequate in a lot of places. So we had denied that partial COC. Since then, I went out to the site with Art as well as a bunch of the folks from Highfields. We checked out, so there were actually a few replication areas that years ago when they did them, they did not succeed in the spot that they put them, but they then found new spots where some were successful. I think the wetland scientist that gave us the report was not directed to those new areas, so we are awaiting some documentation from their team to finish, you know, for the sake of the files, what was successful and what was not. But regardless, even the ones that we found that did succeed in new locations don't add up to the 10,000 square feet. So we also checked out while we were out there, back from when it was a cattle farm. They had an old manure pit they used to use that then once it wasn't an active farm anymore and it became a subdivision, they stopped using it. And over time, it actually grew wetland plants and has impoundment. So they proposed using that to count for the difference that they need to make up in wetland replication. Art pointed out that they are missing a hydrologic connection to existing wetlands. Existing wetlands are only about 20 feet away, so they can cut through the earthen berm and, you know, make it like a spillway of sorts to achieve that connection. So we talked about while we were out there, if that's what they want to do in order to come back into compliance for the 10,000 square feet that were required, those current permits for the subdivision are expired. They're not active right now. So Art's suggestion was that the easiest way going forward would be like a friendly enforcement order. We did also notice while we were out there a significant pile of dumping from their landscapers adjacent to hole 16 on the golf course. So I would probably wrap that right in to this enforcement order and ask for that to be cleaned up as well. And so we left it that they would work on their side on like an official plan and an updated report from the wetland scientists, given those couple areas we did find in the woods. But this was going to be the vehicle to permit that work going forward.
Just a quick question to this very creative way of wetland restoration. Is everything like making that connection, is it on property they control?
Yeah, so also they would then redraw the lines for the other part of the conversation we've been having where they're looking at the open space, which they're looking to hand over to us eventually. They would redraw the line to include this in the open space.
Okay. Just as long as they have control over it so that,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yep.
Does anyone else have questions on this? Or, I mean, we've done quote unquote friendly enforcement orders before, and it's just a mechanism to be able to allow, you know, an ongoing issue to get resolved in a more expedited way instead of having to reopen, do new notice of intents and stuff. It's kind of a continuation of previous permits that are now expired, but it's a one way of kind of getting something done a little bit more efficiently. Does anyone have questions on that?
Not on the friendly enforcement, but on the cow manure plot. Does this open us up to future challenges in enforcement of wetlands by accepting this?
In what way?
Other people trying to skirt the rules by doing something similar.
Well, this is kind of, well, in this particular case, I think it's a leftover from a farm as opposed to someone creating it. So, you know, from our perspective, it's about having a functioning wetlands,
Okay.
And it's a good question because we should always be asking that question. The key thing is whenever we do something like this, you don't want to set a precedent, but I think a former cow manure place is pretty unique and one-offish. And it is specific to this site. So it's not setting a precedent, but it's always a good question to ask that. Because because you don't want to do the same waivers all the time, because then it becomes not unique. You have to have unique circumstances. So like on this one here, typically when we have something like this, we'll do a finding, and that finding describes why that's unique. In this case, it has to do with a bunch of cows who aren't there anymore, and that's why it's very unique. So,
Thank you.
yep. Any other questions on this creative way of creating wetlands, and or any questions on ratifying it through an enforcement order? I'll go around really quickly, and then Leah, do you need a vote on this?
Yes.
Okay. So Travis, any questions on doing it this way?
No, and I'm recusing myself on all things Highfields.
Thank you
I think.
again for reminding me.
Yeah,
We'll
so
get
not
down to
voting.
the. Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. We'll get down to the very last lot, and I'll remember it at that point. But until then, you'll have to keep reminding me. So thank you. Patrick, any kind of questions or any questions on the process or anything?
No, I think that makes sense. I think, the creative solution is a good way to go after
Okay.
it.
Jonathan, any other kind of questions or comments?
I agree with the approach, and I don't have any other questions.
Okay, can I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order as discussed for Highfield subdivision?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick, Emily,
Yes.
and Travis just confirmed that you're recusing.
Yep, recusing myself.
All right, thank you. I'm also a yes, so that passes. Motion carries. All right, anything else, Leah?
Yeah, one final thing. So kind of a similar discussion, Abbey Woods subdivision, which is off of Carroll Road, over behind Peralt's. The site is currently shut down because their permits expired, which we talked about at the last meeting. In the meantime, they have concerns about the adequacy of their stormwater basin. They had Graves go out to the site to check that out. Graves gave us a site visit report confirming that it's inadequate. In order to fix it, Graves recommends regrading the side slopes and also shifting the layout a bit of the basin to avoid the buffer zone. The end of the site visit report, Graves basically said they're aware that the site is shut down right now, but that the owner would stop by to discuss how to proceed with rectifying this in the interim. They have not stopped by the office to talk about this, but I wanted to put the question to you guys if this is something similar that you would want to handle again through like a friendly enforcement order type mechanism, or if you would. I mean, we're waiting on a new NOI from them so that they can get going on the rest of the subdivision. They only built 2 out of, I don't know, 7 or 9 or so lots. They're aware they need to refile. They haven't made any motion on that as far as I'm aware. So I didn't know if you wanted to wrap it into that or have a way to handle it in the interim.
Yeah, that's so I have one question. When you say that the basin is inadequate, is it inadequate because of the volume of it, or I'm just curious how they know without as-built that it's inadequate, or is it overflowing or something?
So this was the first I heard of it. Was the site visit report from Graves, which maybe
Okay.
Jan, if you can pull that up in the meantime. I never got any phone calls or anything about overflow or an active issue. But when
Right.
Graves looked, I believe they're talking about volume. I don't know if they've experienced an
Uh,
overflow
y-
or
I'm,
not.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It's such a broad term, inadequate.
Says it's undersized.
Okay. Oh, okay. So they actually have numbers in there. Okay, that answers the question. That, you know, it's approximately 80 by 40 and was supposed to be twice as big, or actually even. Yeah. Okay, so that's easy enough. That answers my question. So thank you.
Is that supposed to be twice as big for all of the houses or just for the 2 houses that currently exist?
The infrastructure is supposed to be done for the whole subdivision.
Yeah.
You don't keep making the basin larger and larger as each house is built. You build the infrastructure ahead of time. Yeah, that's typically how it's done. They would have to have a whole phasing plan if they want to do something different.
But if it's inadequate for the 2 houses, I get that you build it all at once, but that's okay. Sorry, learning as I go.
No. They're good questions. I mean, I wouldn't even worry about the fact that it's either adequate or inadequate for 2 houses. To me, it's what the permit said, that, you know, the order of conditions said this is what it is, and you're supposed to follow the plans, and they didn't follow the plans. So, but to Leah's question, where the previous discussion on the enforcement order was very explicit to a thing, this one here is a little bit. They still have 7. They had 7 houses. They still have 4 or 5 houses to complete. I don't know if you want to do that many houses under enforcement order. How would you do with COC when they go to sell it?
No, I just meant to fix
Just
to
the basin?
fix the basin. Yeah.
Oh,
if-
I would definitely say it's a one-off on the basin. That would be something that you could fix because it needs to be fixed now. That I don't have a problem with. Okay, and then they still have to come back for the whole site.
Right. Right.
Gotcha. All right. That very different. Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on that now that I understand what the Leah was actually trying to say? Is that something you don't need tonight, but you're just kind of?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't stopped by to initiate the conversation, so I don't know,
Okay.
how urgently they plan to do this. I just wanted to know how to handle it when they come ask.
Okay. I think the basin, which is, specific to protection and of the, wetlands and of other people's homes, that through, an enforcement order makes sense, but yeah, they still need to do a notice of intent for the rest of the site.
Yep. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Do you have any idea of the timing on the regulation updates? I know it's something.
So I went to, God, this is a few months ago with the new commission. So I had heard that because of the new governor, everything was kind of being slowed down by that. So DEP has been putting out a whole bunch of new regulations. They have not gotten to the stormwater one. So through MACC, they're in. They discuss it with DEP a lot, and there's a lot of it's coming. It's been coming for 4 years now.
Right.
It's a little out of date now, so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually update the changes because the rainfall data is already out of date based on this year and what we've gotten for rainstorms. So we keep hearing it's coming, and that the new commissioner of DEP said it is on the list, and they have many other regulations they're updating, and things like PFAS is what's taking precedent over the stormwater. There's a lot of fronts that they're working on, but if I hear anything, I will let you know. I'm still quote unquote on the advisory committee, advisory group or whatever it is, and they have, I've been reached out a couple of times from DEP to say that, you know, they may reconvene it. I haven't heard that. So the short answer is I don't got a clue.
Okay. The only other thing I had was just a question of what does owner and fee mean from National Grid?
Oh, basically what it means is how you actually how you transfer a property. So if I go to sell you a piece of property, I will do it. You know, you basically have to pay a fee. It could be $1, but there has to be a transaction of money. So you'll see in a lot of, like, if you look up old deeds, you know, in fee, someone paid $1. I don't know if the dollar ever got paid, but like when you transfer, you know, property or subdivide property, and that, so it's just a terminology that they own the property as opposed to having an easement on it.
Okay.
So and I'm sure there's more legal definition of it, but that's my understanding of it. So
Sure.
so to me that that told me that they own it and the homeowner has the easement.
Okay. Yep.
So, and big picture, it shouldn't change things. It just making sure they sign off on it.
Right. Okay. That's
So,
all I had for you.
okay. All right. Hey, congratulations. We have a full house tonight. So thanks for everyone for showing up. Summer's
need-
over. Back to fall.
Yeah. One more motion, everyone's favorite.
Who gets it?
Motion to
Patrick's-
adjourn.
Okay. I could see everyone moving their lips and going for the unmute. I think we had 3 people say it at once. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. You can figure out later who said it. Roll call vote. Travis.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
And Jonathan.
Yes.